start the general session on global kidney voices. And we're going to talk about the role and some of the activities that are being done and looking at the role that patients are playing in leading the charge in driving global innovation and independence. We're going to have a series of speakers that will discuss different aspects of global kidney voices. And we're going to begin with Dr. Julianna Blum. She is a co-founder and executive vice president for corporate development for Humacyte, a good friend of AAKP, and we look forward to her presentation. Dr. Blum?
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. My name is Julianna Blum, and I am a co-founder and executive vice president at Humacyte Incorporated. I hope that you find the update I'm giving today invigorating and interesting, and one that aligns with the mission of AAKP. On my first slide, you'll see the disclosures and disclaimers for this presentation. All of the content is included in the text. At Humacyte, we are creating breakthrough innovations to improve patient lives and change the future of medical care. I'm excited to be here today to give you an update on our company, our technology, and the clinical progress we've made. Humacyte technology is being developed to support a platform of therapeutic opportunities across a broad range of clinical applications. Our first product opportunity, the human acellular vessel, has been evaluated for the past 10 years in opportunities like dialysis access for patients undergoing hemodialysis, for bypass for patients needing peripheral arterial disease repair, and for patients who have vascular trauma and need vascular replacement or reconstruction of their vasculature. As we move forward, we're continuing to explore the opportunities that the platform holds. We are now working on small diameter vessels for coronary bypass grafting and even pediatric applications like Blalock-Taussig shunting. We continue to develop our pipeline further and working to create complex tissues such as those that could be utilized as a biovascular pancreas, or even in the future, bioengineering organs. Humacyte has been developing and evaluating our bioengineered tissues for nearly 20 years now. We've spent a lot of time understanding the clinical need and creating products to support patient care. The organization was founded in 2004 by researchers out of Duke University. We are located in Durham, North Carolina. We moved our clinical opportunities, in particular clinical trials and dialysis access, in 2012, and have had the support of FDA through designations like Fast Track and the RMAT, Regenerative Medicine Advanced Therapy Award, since 2017. We've been able to create great relationships and partnerships with organizations like Fresenius Medical Care, the Department of Defense, and the American Association of Kidney Patients. More recently, we've had the opportunity to build out and fully validate a commercial scale production facility that can create our human engineered biotissues at commercial scale. Last month, Humacyte went public. We are now a company actively traded on the NASDAQ. The future looks bright, and I'm excited to continue the mission of our programs to bring our first product to market and develop our pipeline opportunities. Talking to you a bit about our human acellular vessel, the HAV, which is the same vessel we have been using in clinical trials since 2012. It's important to know we've spent many years developing our manufacturing system and creating an engineering system that can produce these HAVs at numbers that can support patients in need when the product is approved. Our bioengineering systems can grow batches of 200 HAVs at a time, and our current facility can make upwards of 8,000 units a year. When our facility is fully built out to capacity, it's possible to grow over 40,000 HAVs, or human acellular vessels, a year to support commercial launch and the opportunity for patients around the world to receive the product. These bioengineered HAVs are created using human cells to grow a new, robust vessel inside of a bioreactor bag. That bioreactor bag is inside the engineering system that creates 200 vessels a batch. These batches of vessels are created exactly the same way every time, resulting in a biological product that comes out of the box the same way every time a surgeon pulls it off the shelf. At the end of the growth process, we remove the donor cell identity from the cells used to grow these new tissues, package the product inside the sterile bioreactor bag, and ship those units directly to the hospitals. They're then available on the shelf at the time of surgery when the patient needs it. When the HAV is needed, the surgical team opens the box and removes the HAV. They're readily available on demand. I thought it would be interesting to show you a video of how simple and easy it is to remove the HAV from its packaging and have it available in the OR when the surgeon needs it and for the patient. The package is easily opened with the inside container being sterile. The solution inside the bioreactor bag is normal saline. The bag is opened, saline is drained, simple scissors can be used to open the thin plastic bioreactor bag. The HAV is then cut from the support system in the bioreactor bag and placed into a pan of saline. When the surgeon needs it, the vessel is ready to be implanted. Developing a bioengineered biological product allows us to address some of the shortcomings in currently available products. As you saw in the last video, the product is available off the shelf and immediately usable in the OR during the time of surgery. Over several years of clinical evaluation, we've seen that the HAV is also resistant to infection and has shown no evidence of immunogenicity when implanted into the patients on study. Probably the most remarkable attribute of the HAV is its ability to repopulate with patient's own cells, regenerating the HAV into the patient's living tissue. For end-stage renal disease patients, having an HAV available for access just 4 weeks after implantation is one of the benefits we provide patients undergoing dialysis access. In a little bit, I'll talk to you about long-term durability and the robustness of the product, as we've been able to capture some 5-year clinical data showing that the HAV not only continues to regenerate and support a living tissue, but also is durable and long-lasting. One of the key attributes and most important biological phenomenons of our technology is the ability of the HAV to repopulate with the patient's own cells. The HAV regenerates to become a living tissue. What if patients had the option to have something implanted that was as easy to put in as a synthetic graft, but had the biological components of a fistula? Once the HAV is implanted, the patient's cells begin to repopulate the structure. What goes into the body looking like a plain white tube becomes a living tissue. The image on the right is an HAV exposed during a routine procedure. The HAV has become a living tissue. You can see when the HAV is opened during the procedure that the wall of the vessel bleeds and is completely cellularized. The lumen is intact and shiny, demonstrating the ability of the HAV to repopulate and regenerate to become part of the patient's own living tissue. A regenerative therapy for vascular applications, such as dialysis access, has the potential to change the way we treat patients and think about their clinical care. Humacyte is developing this technology today. After many years of studying and evaluating our technology, we began our clinical trial programs in 2012. To date, we have 8 ongoing clinical studies across 4 different indications: vascular trauma, peripheral arterial disease, AV access for dialysis care, and a handful of patients who have been selected and approved by FDA for expanded access care. We have 460 patients on study in total across 60 sites and 6 countries. Throughout our experience, over 100 surgeons have taken and used the HAV clinically. With 5 clinical studies in vascular access for dialysis ongoing today, we have a good understanding of where the HAV would fit and benefit dialysis patients. As many of you know better than I, AV fistula is the preferred or gold standard of care for dialysis patients. And although this is best for most, it is not good for all. And there are many patients who are not suitable for a fistula or whose fistula never matures. For those patients, they have alternatives like synthetic grafts or catheters to use for dialysis. But those products, synthetic grafts or catheters, have shortcomings too, and have complications associated with infection and durability. The HAV could provide a better access option for many dialysis patients, especially those who aren't suitable for a fistula or who are prone to recurrent infections. Our initial AV access studies were completed here in the US and Poland. There were 6 sites in total with 60 patients. Our first read on the study was at 12 months. Clinical data showed that the patency of the HAV compared favorably to what's been reported in the literature for PTFE and fistulas. We further evaluated different safety outcomes of the HAV as well, looking specifically at the biological attributes of the product. We saw no signs of aneurysmal degeneration. We saw no evidence of clinical rejection. And in fact, many of the patients on study went on to be able to have successful kidney transplants. This work was published in The Lancet in 2016. These studies provided us with clinical evidence that the regenerative properties of the HAV had a potential to improve patients undergoing dialysis care. One of the important impacts of the HAV being regenerative and becoming a living tissue within the patient is the ability of the HAV to heal after cannulation. For dialysis patients, cannulation is a way of life, and having cannulations after cannulations can be trying and challenging to an AV access conduit. For the HAV, we've seen clinical evidence of healing after cannulation. The 3 images in the slide show a new cannulation tract, show a cannulation tract that has healed to some extent, and at the far right, a cannulation tract that has fully healed. This is definitely an attribute of the HAV that is different than those synthetic or plastic types of accesses like PTFE. Looking at that same cohort of patients from the earlier slide, we have now followed them out 5 years. We have clinically demonstrated the long-term potential and functionality of the HAV. The image on the left shows a patient whose HAV has been utilized for dialysis for nearly 6 years. The HAV is durable and intact. Patency data from the cohort of patients still on study suggests that the HAV is favorable compared to fistula and PTFE values in the literature for patency over a long period of time. Following patients out on study gives us the indication that the HAV will be a valuable opportunity for patients for long-term dialysis care. Additional data that we've been able to analyze from clinical specimens shows that the HAV remodeling or regeneration is consistent across a wide range of patients, regardless of age, regardless of gender, or other attributes. We have seen histochemistry images that demonstrate that the HAV remodels to be a living tissue, regardless of the patient makeup. At Humacyte, we have spent a good number of years developing and evaluating our HAV product. In particular, the use of the HAV for dialysis access, PAD, and trauma. We continue to expand the engineering platform and developing new opportunities and initiatives to bring bioengineered tissues to a broader patient population. We're continuing to work on vascular opportunities, those in the small diameter space, taking an HAV and seeding it with islet cells so that perhaps one day it can be used as a biovascular pancreas to help treat patients with type 1 diabetes. And we've even begun unraveling the work around how to develop and create a bioengineered organ. Eliminating the wait list for organ transplantation in the future might actually be a reality. We hear the needs of the patients and are listening to the doctors and surgeons asking for better product options or therapies that can be used to fix unmet needs. The era of readily available tissues is here, and it's one that has an opportunity to change the way we think about medicine. Behind every innovation is a purpose. The road to success is not always easy or quick. It takes time and persistence to create and validate a new product for clinical use. Developing strong relationships is key, and it is definitely key to Humacyte's success. We value the partnerships we have with patient groups like AAKP, with industry and clinical partners, with payers and others that are helping to create the village that is bringing these readily available tissues to market. We are pushing ahead to finish our clinical trials and seek FDA approval. One day, our HAV may be the perfect opportunity for patients undergoing dialysis or other vascular needs. Our purpose is to provide innovative, engineered tissues for patients. We would like to extend an appreciative thank you to all of you who have supported Humacyte and our technology. In particular, we'd like to thank those who have participated in our clinical studies. Thank you again for the invitation to speak here today. It has been my pleasure to join you all.
Thank you, Dr. Blum. We appreciate your presentation and update about what's going on with Humacyte. And we look forward to continued collaborations with you and the organization. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to hear from Kathleen Tighe. Kathleen is the Vice President and Head of U.S. Public Affairs and Patient Advocacy for Rare Diseases with Sanofi Genzyme. And I've had the great pleasure of working with her on numerous occasions within the past, and I'm looking forward, as we all are, to her presentation. Kathleen?
Hi, everyone. I'm Kate Tighe, Head of U.S. Public Affairs and Patient Advocacy for Rare Diseases at Sanofi Genzyme. It's a true honor to be here today in support of AAKP, and in particular, our partnership for the Fabry disease and Alport syndrome communities. At Sanofi, our passion is to prevent and treat and cure illness and disease throughout life. We are a global company driven to improve the health of communities, including communities of kidney patients here in the US, and to find new solutions for patients by combining breakthrough science with advanced technology. Inspired by the resilience of our patients and strengthened by our heritage, we are always working for new ways to fight chronic, complex, and rare diseases with medicines that offer hope for patients, their families, and the future of healthcare. Within the healthcare ecosystem in the US, Sanofi Genzyme's US Public Affairs and Patient Advocacy teams work with partners like AAKP in four main ways. First, to advance research and development. We make sure we listen to and engage with US advocates to incorporate their insights for all key priority programs in partnership with our colleagues in medical and research and development. We facilitate access, partnering with US advocates to improve patient access and affordability, keeping patients' needs at the center of policymaker and payer decisions, moving towards a patient-centered system. We work to improve health, collaborating with advocates, patients, and leaders in the community to increase disease awareness so patients can have informed cooperative decisions with their healthcare teams on solutions to improve their health. And we work to be a leader in the space, to be a partner who listens, acts, and leads with the community on areas of mutual interest, always respecting the independence of organizations with whom we partner. For us in the kidney space, this looks like a few different activities, really along four main ways that I'll cover now. The first is around the initial design of clinical trials, where for our teams, the lived patient experiences and the unmet needs of the community truly inform the direction of drug development. It's important to us that we avoid me too drugs. There's no need to replicate in the system another drug that does exactly what another drug already does, but rather to solve a real need. We were incredibly excited for a new clinical trial coming for the Fabry community to understand the impact of a compound on pain. Hearing from Fabry patients that although there were drugs available on the market to treat many of the disease's impacts and symptoms, pain remained a real day-to-day challenge for them and for their families and was a true unmet need. Sanofi heard the feedback from the community, continued to invest in our pipeline, and are excited to be bringing forward a new clinical trial for those Fabry patients. It's also important to us that we invest in communities where there is no current therapy, engaging early to understand what the needs are in rare and ultra-rare communities to make investments to bring forward treatments. And just because a treatment comes to market, we don't stop. So we're excited to be continuing our effort with the Alport community, which is a kidney community with very limited clinical options to care for their disease. It's important that the patient is part of our clinical research, the conduct and awareness of studies. This for us looks like engaging the community to increase awareness of the study. So partnering with organizations like AAKP, as well as other organizations in the kidney space to ensure that patients are aware of a clinical trial. Quite often research is happening at major academic centers, which is exciting, as it means there is a key investigator who's involved who can raise significant awareness for the study. But many kidney patients are not seen at a major academic center. And it's important to us that patients from across the country are aware of their opportunity to get involved in clinical research and participate in clinical studies. We hold ad boards with patients, their loved ones, their caregivers, and their family members to understand what materials and educational content will be most valuable for patients throughout the study, ensuring that there are materials available in both English and Spanish, and that they represent a variety of ways to engage with the study, both online, in print and mail, respecting that not all patients engage and get their information in the same way. And we take feedback from the community about how our trials could be better conducted. For example, adding home nursing, virtual visits, satellite visits to improve the ease for patients to participate in the clinical research process. We're also not afraid to take negative feedback, and we've used that before to improve our studies. Protocol amendments can be a great way to address impact and input from the community. It's incredibly important to us that we continue to have ongoing investment in the communities where we're active. In the United States, we support a variety of patient organizations, both at a large national level, such as NORD or Everylife Foundation for Rare Diseases, as well as disease-specific organizations like the Fabry Support and Information Group, National Fabry Disease Foundation, Alport Syndrome Foundation, and of course, organizations like AAKP, recognizing and respecting the leadership role that they have in the community. We're very proud to be an ongoing financial contributor to those organizations to ensure that patients have access to disease education materials, patient conferences such as this one, and the support and resources that they need from their community members to navigate the complex and chronic conditions with which they live. We are proud to partner with our colleagues on the Patient Support Services team to bring disease education, offering services like genetic counseling, family tree mapping, disease education, as well as psychosocial support, support for navigating the school system when you have a child with a chronic disease, being a loved one or a partner to someone who's living with a chronic condition, to really offer that full holistic support to communities that really need it as they navigate their condition. And we're excited that we partner with organizations like AAKP to bring patient stories back inside the company. Sometimes that can be for an awareness day to ensure that our colleagues across the company truly understand the lived experience of the patients that we serve. Sometimes it can be to inform that early bench research, and sometimes it can be to advise us on places where we can continue to be a better partner to the community. We're able to hear from patients themselves, as well as loved ones, children of patients, et cetera, to really understand what the impact of the condition is and how we as a company could better serve those communities. We also make sure that we invest above the particular disease level. We understand that the healthcare system is an ecosystem and that operating specifically in each disease area may improve conditions for that one particular disease, but is only a piece of the problem. So we work particularly with AAKP on three particular areas. We have an advocacy council that meets above disease. So I'm the head of rare diseases, but there are versions of me across the company for neurology, immunology, oncology, vaccines, general medicine, and rare blood disorders. We convene our thought leaders 3 to 4 times a year to advise the company in a standing manner on how we can be a better partner. What are ways that we could better improve our engagement of the community through research and development? What are best practices that they're seeing from other partners with whom they work? We have a digital summit coming up where we'll be looking for input on how Sanofi can improve the delivery of healthcare through digital means, things like shared decision-making tools, apps for patients, an Alexa app, which our rare blood disorders team recently launched. What are the things that we can do in the digital space to help reach patients and community members where they are, understanding that not every patient wants to always call their doctor and not every doctor is always available. How can we make sure that we're a good digital partner to them? We've also heard feedback on how we can be a better partner in the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging space. Sharing both our own company pledge, but also taking feedback about what our responsibility is as a global citizen in the healthcare space. We were incredibly fortunate to recently have Richard Knight deliver a keynote for us at a rare disease patient advocacy leadership summit, where we worked together as a group of 40 plus leaders from across the space, kidney and beyond, to talk about how you really implement those DEI and B solutions at an organizational level. What are the challenges that your particular communities are facing, and how can we work together to solve it? Recognizing that the healthcare system only works when it works for everyone. Also work quite hard on policies to support access and affordability for patients, both in terms of our own affordability programs for patients as financial assistance, a global humanitarian program that this year is celebrating 30 years of providing free access to Sanofi therapies for patients around the world who otherwise might not be able to access our therapies. But also making sure that patients are empowered to advocate for their own needs, supporting education on the legislative process, how to engage your Congress member, how to tell your story, supporting Hill Days, recognizing that the patient voice in the policymaking process is incredibly important. And that affordability is a real issue for many of our constituents. And so hearing both from patients about their needs, but also understanding that advocacy organizations like AAKP play a key role, we're incredibly proud to continue to be investing in those areas. We really appreciate the opportunity to be here today, to partner with AAKP, to continue to deliver solutions for the kidney community throughout the life cycle, to be investing in a better future, both on the delivery of medicine and the access to medicine down the line through the healthcare system. We really hope that you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thanks for having me.
Kathleen, thank you for that presentation. And again, special thanks to you and the organization for all the work that you do for patients and your collaborations with AAKP. We are now going to hear from Rosemarie Sellati. And Rosemarie is a global head of patient advocacy for transplant at Novartis. She is a reformed scientist, so we're certainly glad that she came over to the patient advocacy side. We're looking forward to her presentation. Rosemarie?
Hi there, my name is Rose Sellati, and I'm the Global Patient Engagement and Patient Advocacy Lead for Transplant and Liver Diseases at Novartis. I want to start by thanking AAKP for this opportunity to present to you. I want to tell you a little bit more about my role at Novartis. I support all aspects of drug development and commercial activities, helping teams to identify when, where, and how to implement patient insights and advocacy relations into our work, and ultimately support the patients and the broader community. This support is now end-to-end, so I work with teams in our research facility through various stages of development and into the commercial spaces, including market access. So our goals for today are really for me to share a little bit more about Novartis's commitment to patients, to talk about why it's so important for all of us in industry to recognize the value of patient engagement throughout the life cycle, and to share ways we can engage with the community to meet our aligned goals of improving the lives of patients. Like many companies, we pride ourselves in developing innovative medicines using advances in science and technology. I've worked at a number of companies, large and small, and each company has a certain culture that is embedded into the work environment. One of the things that drew me to Novartis were the people and the welcoming environment they created. The people at Novartis work with purpose, embracing this curiosity and inspiring each other to act with integrity. Novartis is a very big company and develops medicines in many therapeutic areas, including oncology, immunology, rheumatology, and transplant, just to name a few. We have facilities all over the world and employ over 110,000 people. But this size comes with enormous responsibility, and we take this very seriously in developing medicines to ensure that they meet patients' true unmet needs and that patients who need them have proper access. It's no secret that we live in an era of amazing medical innovation driven by better understanding of genetic and biological roots of disease and a surging use of data analytics and digital technology in science and healthcare. My generation saw the creation of the first computer and the World Wide Web, which are now staples in even third world countries. But at the same time, the world's population continues to grow and people are living longer, which is fueling this rise in chronic and debilitating diseases. Together, these factors are increasing the demand for high quality care worldwide and pressuring health systems to rise to the challenges of these increasing demands. So how can we rise to this challenge of increasing needs? Novartis is a leader in developing transformative medicines to feed into this demand. There are 5 big strategic pillars at Novartis, and the 2 that I'd like to focus on for the rest of my talk are those highlighted in red: delivering transformative innovation and building trust with society. To me, these are the 2 greatest opportunities for patient engagement and patient advocacy relations. Advancing R&D cannot be done without a thorough understanding of patients' unmet needs and the expectations with respect to new medicines. I'm a scientist by training, and I spent 15 years doing basic research and drug development on many chronic and acute immunological diseases. I can tell you firsthand that many scientists tend to think about diseases in a very molecular way and often lose sight of the humanistic aspect of diseases and really know what matters most to patients. One day in my tenure as a scientist, I had the opportunity to speak with a patient suffering from one of the diseases we actively doing research on, psoriasis. And she shared some of the daily challenges she had living with this chronic disease, the plaques, the joint pain, the embarrassing moments, and things she couldn't do because of the disease. But then she said to me, "You know what my biggest issue is living with psoriasis? It's the itch." And she looked me in the eye and she said, "If you are not solving the itch, you're not solving my problem." I thought I knew everything I needed to know about the diseases we were developing medicines for just by understanding the science. But I walked away from that conversation with that patient very humbled and realizing how little I knew. I went back to my lab bench with a new perspective and a more focused direction on which pathways I should target to address this unmet needs that these patients really suffered from. So without patient engagement, we can be misguided, but by working with patients and understanding what matters most to them, we have an opportunity and honestly an obligation to expedite the research we conduct. The dimension of development and clinical trials is just as important. We spend a great deal of time, resources, and money designing trials and conducting trials. Quite a few trials are delayed or even closed due to low enrollment, high dropout, or missing data. The CTTI, the Clinical Trial Transformation Initiative, published a paper in 2018 assessing the financial value of patient engagement. They took data from real clinical trials and monetized the cost savings of avoiding protocol amendments with patient engagement activities. I'll let you read the specifics, but suffice to say that a modest investment of $100,000 in patient engagement activities could potentially save a company millions of dollars. and just as importantly, years of time in advancing medicines to market. The reality is we all are or will be patients someday. We're all these biological vessels at the mercy of chronic and acute diseases. The power that we have in industry is our expertise and our collective passion to make a difference. Our commitment to patients and caregivers speaks to this aspiration of integrating patient perspectives more meaningfully and deeply into our daily work. And I'm speaking for all of us in the industry right now. Driving a better understanding of the science behind the diseases we research, developing medicines that truly address patient unmet needs from route of administration to mechanisms of action, designing trials with the reality of a patient's life and family in mind, and working with payers and policymakers to ensure access to healthcare and the medicines that we work so hard to develop for patients. All of these should be a focus for us as we journey through drug development. But we can't reach these goals without working together with organizations that share the same vision. We recognize that long-term success depends on many things, but one important factor is building and sustaining trust with society, including patient groups and professional societies. At Novartis, we've taken a concerted effort to move away from transactional relationships with groups and work more collaboratively in a model of co-creation across disease awareness, education, clinical development, and policy. And although we work in a highly regulated industry and some decisions are not ours to make, some insights and perspectives we may not be able to incorporate into our work or solve for right away, that should never stop us from listening to patients with respect. I was and always will be a scientist, but science only serves as our north, our direction. Our patients serve as our true north, that destination for all of us. And that we have to remember at every junction in the work that we do making medicines. I want to sincerely thank you for your time. And should there be any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. We're all in this together.
Thank you, Rosemarie, for that very insightful presentation. We appreciate your insights. And also, I want to thank you and Novartis for all that you're doing for kidney patients. Now, we're going to hear from two representatives from Bayer Pharmaceuticals. First, we're going to hear from Melissa Penn, who's the Deputy Director for Advocacy for Bayer, and she's going to be joined by Dr. Daniel Wilson, who's the Senior Medical Director for Bayer. Melissa, Dr. Wilson, we have a couple of questions for you, and I'll pose the questions, and I would like the two of you to respond to them. First question, please share how your views on treatment innovations have been shaped by some patients that you've known during your careers and the challenges they face in pursuing aspirations and life goals.
I'm a nephrologist and I practiced for nearly 30 years. And during that time, I interacted with patients. And one of the most difficult things that I had to do was to look in the eyes of a patient and tell them that they had end-stage renal disease and that they were going to require dialysis. You know, at times, I really believe it was just as hard for me as it was for them in terms of hearing this message, because I failed, or we failed as a team, to protect their kidneys, and they advanced to end-stage kidney disease. Over the years, I focused on becoming a preventive nephrologist. I wanted to do everything possible to prevent kidney injury. I treated hypertension aggressively. I used medications that reduced proteinuria. I lowered lipids, and I reinforced lifestyle changes. But unfortunately, we didn't have a whole lot at that time to really prevent progression of kidney disease. New treatments were unusual. All we really had was ACE inhibitors and ARBs, two medications that reduced proteinuria and blood pressure, and these were especially useful for treating patients with diabetic kidney disease. Now we have novel therapies, new therapies that have clearly shown the ability to reduce progression of kidney disease and to reduce cardiovascular events, importantly, in patients with chronic kidney disease. We have potassium binders that treat kidney disease, help treat kidney disease and minimize risk. We have SGLT2 inhibitors and non-steroidal MRAs. One thing that I've become aware of over the years is that one drug doesn't fit all. We need innovation. We need multiple medications. We have to customize our regimens to a patient. We need alternatives to effectively treat patients effectively. Importantly, we need to partner with you to find ways to get these medications to people that need them.
What really interested me in the job that I have and the space that I'm in is the need for innovation and working for a company looking to develop innovative treatments in this space, which is a public health crisis. And it's really that crisis that drew my attention. So the immense health, quality of life, and economic burden that's on people with kidney disease is really extraordinary. And the barriers, the hurdles for screening, diagnosis, and actually coding it into the charts are certainly profound barriers. And I'll give you one example that happens all the time, and that's with my mother. My mom has had type 2 diabetes for many years. And after I started working at Bayer, I looked at her labs and I said, Mom, she's got eGFR in the 40s. Like, it looks like you have chronic kidney disease. So I went with her to her primary care doctor. And I said, listen, I've just been in this space for a short time, but I'm looking at it and I think she's got stage 3B chronic kidney disease, but I don't see a UACR. He says, yeah, she does have kidney disease. Oh yeah, and she doesn't need a UACR, which she does, and she did. But that is a prime example of what we see happening over and over again. And the question is, what can we collectively do to improve this process?
Melissa, this is not an unusual problem. I too have a family member, my brother, who's actually a lawyer, and he has diabetes. I had to ask him what his kidney function was. He was not told about his kidney function. I had to ask him whether or not he had protein in his urine. And when I found out the values, I said, you really need to see a nephrologist. And I made the referral to a local nephrologist for him. So I think that your story is similar to many of us. We need to we need to educate patients as well as physicians to address this public health crisis.
Great responses. Our next question for you. Can you comment on your views on why patient care choices and access to new treatment matters for patients and their families?
So we've learned over the last several years or the last many years, that many of our older medications have limitations. They're not effective in terms of reducing progression of kidney disease. Over the last 4 to 5 years, we've recognized that there are benefits from some of these newer treatments. They have the ability to retard the progression of kidney disease, to reduce cardiovascular events, and I think that we need to emphasize that these medications are available and have the potential to reduce progression of kidney disease. But I'm concerned, and the reason I'm concerned is that these medications are not getting to people who need them. We've got to fix this. Again, one treatment doesn't fit all. Many patients will require multiple medications in terms of reducing their chances for progressing towards end-stage renal disease and dialysis.
Patients with chronic kidney disease have languished for decades without innovation until recently. So this has resulted in poor outcomes, diminished quality of life, and excessive cost to the healthcare system. And as you know, chronic kidney disease is a condition of disparities. People who are Black or African American are nearly twice as likely to develop type 2 diabetes compared to non-Hispanic whites, and Hispanic Americans are 80% more likely to develop type 2 diabetes. And these individuals are also more likely to develop end-stage kidney disease and are less likely to receive care from specialists prior to beginning dialysis. Primary care will need to be on the front lines, as they are with so many things. But we need to make sure that doing the right thing is also the easy thing. So the bottom line is that it's really about dignity and about the science. We need to respect the dignity of an individual to determine what's best for their own health and what they want out of life, and respect the science and the medicine so that individuals, along with their healthcare professional, can determine the best course of action.
Thank you for those well thought out answers. And now I have another question for you, and this is kind of a two-part question. There has been a shift in the past 10 years towards patient-centered medicine and whole person care, and an expanded role for patients and patient advocacy organizations in the drug development process, as well as encouraging federal agencies to accelerate substantive policies that honor full patient consumer choice in treatment and smarter policies to better align both regulatory and payment decisions. Can you provide your insights on why, beyond rhetoric and based on substance, patients and advocates should be involved in these processes?
Well, let's start with the beginning of that question. You called it patient-centered medicine. I call it personalized medicine. And what that means is the patient and the physician really collaborate to determine the best therapy for the patient going forward. It's a collaboration. It's not a physician dictating to a patient. It's working together to find the best treatment to treat their kidney disease or to prevent progression of kidney disease. Now, I think that patients and physicians need to work together to ensure that we have access to the therapies and medications that we need, whether it's from a healthcare system, whether it's from a formulary, whether or not it's from the government. We can't remain quiet. Healthcare professionals are frequently asked to use older medications. Formularies required them to try a medication, and then you have to fail that medication before you can move to a newer therapy. Many of these older medications are not approved to stop the progression of kidney disease. And there's basically formularies or other groups are putting impediments to patients getting the medications that they need. We need to focus on FDA-approved medications that will prevent progression of kidney disease, reduce kidney injury, or to treat patients with advanced kidney disease effectively. You know, over the years, we found effective ways to get medications to patients with AIDS. We found effective ways to get medications to patients with hepatitis C. We need to do that with CKD and kidney disease. We have to realize that there's a high morbidity and mortality with patients if they go all the way to end-stage kidney disease, and we need to reduce that with prevention.
Before coming to Bayer, I worked in the patient advocacy world, and I really lived the mantra, nothing about us without us, and that is certainly applicable here. Specifically to this question, successful transformation to patient-driven care or whole person care, it depends on the alignment of outcomes measures. So patients and patient advocates need to have the opportunity to be involved, to have input onto the outcomes. Like, how is the data collected? Does it represent me? Are the outcomes that are meaningful to payers meaningful to me? Without patient input, how will agencies and payers know what's optimal for patients? And without an understanding of what's optimal to patients, there remains the chance that barriers and challenges will arise when patients need access to the right treatment for them.
Thank you both for that thoughtful response. Next question. AAKP actively engages with industry partners on clinical trials, from the development of trial design, endpoints, identification of potential barriers to enrollment and to retention of participants, as well as developing trial awareness campaigns to support enrollment. Can you tell us How valuable is it to have patients engaged in the overall trial development process?
Well, one of the constants that we live with is change, and I'm glad to see that we're making changes in terms of the way that we do research, the way that we're performing clinical trials. I think there's a general recognition from trialists across the nation and also from governmental bodies that we need to involve patients early on in terms of the development of our clinical trials. We need to know what's important, and we're now measuring patient-reported outcomes. And I think that this represents a substantial change in the way that we've conducted clinical research. In many situations now, we have patients that are on our steering committees that participate in terms of the development of a research protocol. They tell us what may be difficult for a patient and how we can best structure a clinical trial convenient for patients to participate in. One of the other things that we do is we have them take a look now at our consent forms. When I first started in doing clinical trials, we had consent forms that were maybe 8, 9, or 10 pages long. Lately, I've seen consent forms that have been 25 pages or 35 pages long. I think we need to simplify these and put them in plain language, and so that patients understand the benefits and the potential risk associated with a research project. So including patients in terms of the research process, and including them in terms of clinical trials, and including them in terms of the analysis of these clinical trials is something that I see that's happening at this point in time, and something that I see that's going to accelerate as we move forward.
No, the essence of this is simple. How we do it is not simple. But the basic premise is that it is essential that people for whom the medications are intended are part of the clinical trial. And this trial should, to the extent possible, represent the demographics of the people taking the medicine. And to do that, we need to be working with patients and patient advocacy groups from the beginning. Groups like AAKP that have the grassroots approach, that work with patient ambassadors to both educate about clinical trials and inform about specific clinical trials.
Last question here. What are some patient engagement best practices you would recommend to peers in the industry?
I want to change this question a little bit. I want to address the patients, and I want to address the AAKP, because I think we all need to participate in kidney care. And I'd like to leave a message with patients and with the members of this organization. You have to participate in your care. And when you meet with a physician, you need to ask 3 questions. What's my diagnosis? What does it mean to me? And what can I do about it? We need to leave every patient with that information. As a company and working at Bayer, I think one of the things we've done is we've encouraged patients to use available resources. The NIDDK, the National Institutes of Health, have excellent materials on educating patients regarding kidney disease and how to monitor your therapy with kidney disease and how to prevent progression of kidney disease. I think that one of the things we do in the industry is we encourage patients that we work with and groups that we work with to become advocates for kidney care. So that we can raise awareness about prevention, because we now can do something about it. And another thing I would recommend is that to patients and to all of us, myself included, is sign the back of your driver's license. Give a gift. A kidney that's available and goes to a patient finds a happy home. So my thought is that together we all need to participate in the care, and with that we need to raise awareness to reduce this basically this very large focus on a very large healthcare issue in the United States. Thank you.
So I think it starts with partnerships. Partnering with patients and patient advocacy groups to improve health needs to be part of your mission. And partnerships includes co-creating. So groups like AAKP are ideal partners. And when you partner, you listen, you ask questions, and you respond, right? So the idea is to get input all along the way. And true partnerships are bidirectional, right? That means that you need to be open to criticism. You need to be willing and agile enough to rethink your positions. But it is all about the relationship and the partnership.
Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you for your presentations and your responses to questions during this session. Your insights have been of a great benefit to the patient community that has listened, and I wish each of you well and enjoy the rest of the day.